So, here I am in West Vancouver, British Columbia, and I thought I'd share some of my first words of the day from this rather scenic point up on this little cliffside here. I just finished my morning meditation, and this is, of all the places I've meditated, one of the most scenic for sure. I was gonna say serene, but there's some construction going on, so that kind of fucked that up. But anyhow, there's this idea that I've kind of been thinking about. It's been on my mind the last week or so, and it came from this idea in this book that I read by Alan Watts. The book is Become What You Are. Now, the first part of the idea is that we must be free to do what we want, what makes us happy. You know, and there's a certain amount of truth in that, you know. We have to wake up in the morning and have a life-affirming feeling that just makes us want to say yes to life and get up and do whatever it is that we're going to do. But I think that can be taken too far, and especially where I've grown up as a middle-class, young white male in America, or who's grown up in America. I think we have this idea of the point of life is to be happy. And I know I used to think that. And while I don't say that's wrong, I think it is certainly fallible to a certain extent, because happiness is extrapolated from a certain experience we have at certain points in our life that we oftentimes call the best parts of our life. And so we try to hang on to that because we feel that's what makes it worthwhile. But in the same way as a pendulum can't hold on to the top of its swing, I don't think we can really try to cling to the peaks and valleys of our life like that, because that would take the contour out of it, you know? The pendulum would have no swing if it didn't have the height and depth of the swing. So the second part of this idea is that we also have to be free to be able to do what we don't want to do. And that's not to say to go about life in a masochistic way. Actually, that has nothing to do with masochism at all. But I think it is helpful to be open to things that aren't necessarily always thought of as pleasant. What if we just what if we were stuck with this kind of fallible idea of what happiness was, and so we always proceeded towards that and just kind of blocked out everything else that wasn't in line with that image? I think we would seriously be straying away from a very valuable part of human experience. Like, for example, I like sleeping in the morning. I like getting a really long sleep because I wake up feeling refreshed and revitalized. But what if my idea of happiness was sleeping in every day? Well, not only would I be fooling myself into thinking that that's the only way I can feel energized and fully well rested, because oftentimes when I do force myself to get up earlier, not only will that allow for a deeper sleep that starts earlier that next night, but by getting to sleep earlier, I feel refreshed even more, because even though I'm getting the same amount of sleep since it shifted earlier. It often allows for a greater feeling that wouldn't be available if I was just to stick to my idea of what happiness was. So I guess it's about coming into contact with what it is we need, and whether or not we're telling ourselves what we really need, or if it's just an idea that needs to be kind of checked and balanced, you know? And I have found, especially, I mean, this is a rather recent idea, that we have to be free to do what we don't want to do, but I have found, since I've been in contact with this idea, or that's a weird way of saying that, but it's much harder to do that which is harder, but also good for us, than it is to do what we quote unquote want to do, even though we can learn to want what is not necessarily easy. And I think that's where we gotta go, because we do certain things that aren't easy because of how beneficial they can be. I think what we really crave is an experience of being alive. And that experience is not always acquired through just stubbornly sticking to what we think we want. I think we've got to break that idea up and find a newfound way of experiencing. And that newfound way of experiencing can often be reached, I think, by going with open arms towards that which we are reluctant to, whether it be something we're fearful of or whatever.